A scroll burns in the dark. Someone is whispering into the silence, pouring out every fear, every hope, every fractured thought, word after careful word, aimed at a presence they believe already knows the ending. And still, they speak. Still, they kneel. Why? That question has haunted humanity for centuries, not just as a theological puzzle, but as a deeply personal contradiction that sits in the chest of every person who has ever clasped their hands and closed their eyes. If the one you're speaking to already holds every outcome, every timeline, every possibility in a single infinite gaze, then what exactly are you doing? Who is prayer really for? By the time this story reaches its end, something will shift. Not out there in the cosmos. In here, in the way you understand what happens when a human being opens their mouth and speaks into the unknown. Let's start where it hurts. A woman kneels in a hospital chapel. It's 3 in the morning. The fluorescent lights hum overhead. Her son is 2 floors up, connected to machines that breathe for him. She doesn't recite memorized words. She doesn't bargain. She simply talks, the way you'd talk to someone sitting across from you in the dark. She tells God what God already knows. And when she stands up 40 minutes later, nothing in the room has changed. The machines still hum. The diagnosis hasn't shifted, but she walks differently. Her shoulders sit lower. Her breathing has slowed. Something inside her has reorganized itself, quietly, like furniture rearranged in a room she can't quite see. Most people assume prayer is about sending information upward, like filing a request with a cosmic administrator. That's the instinct. You need something, you ask for it, you hope the request gets processed. And if the administrator already has the file open, already sees every possible outcome, then the request feels redundant. Pointless even. That's the obvious answer. And it's not wrong. But it misses something crucial. Prayer was never designed as an information transfer. To understand what it actually does, we need to step back, far back, into the mechanics of what happens inside a human body and mind when someone prays. In 2012, researchers compiled 25 separate studies on cognitive therapy and found something striking. When patients used prayer as a form of self-talk, weaving petition into their internal monologue, their ability to reappraise difficult emotions improved by 65%. Not because the prayer changed external circumstances, because the act of articulating fear, hope, and surrender restructured the way their brains processed those emotions. The words became a scaffold, the petition became a mirror, and the person looking into that mirror saw themselves more clearly than before. That woman in the hospital chapel wasn't uploading data to an omniscient server. She was reorganizing her own inner architecture, the act of speaking her pain aloud, of placing it in the context of something larger than herself, shifted her neural pathways from panic to something closer to acceptance. Prayer didn't change God's mind, it changed hers. But here's where it gets more complicated, because prayer isn't just one thing, it never has been. Walk into a Catholic cathedral during evening vespers. The air is thick with incense. Voices rise and fall in unison, following patterns laid down over 1,000 years. The words are prescribed. The postures are specific. Kneel, stand, cross yourself. Repeat. Now step across the world into a mosque at dawn. A man unfolds his prayer mat, faces Mecca, and begins Salah. He stands, bows, prostrates, rises. Every movement is precise. Every Quranic recitation tuned to a rhythm that synchronizes breath and body. In a monastery in Kyoto, a monk sits in stillness, repeating a single syllable on each exhale. In a synagogue in Jerusalem, a congregation rocks forward and back, chanting psalms that have echoed through 3,000 years of exile and return. These are not the same practice. They use different words, different postures, different theologies, but they share a common architecture. Every one of them combines physical movement, controlled breathing, and repetitive vocalization. Every one of them asks the body to participate in what the mind is doing. And that convergence, that alignment of breath and word and posture, produces measurable effects. A 2018 study on Muslim practitioners found that performing salah with its full cycle of postures produced a 45% greater increase in reported calm compared to silent, motionless petition. The body wasn't just along for the ride, it was doing half the work. The bowing, the prostrating, the standing, each movement sent signals through the nervous system that reinforced the mental state the prayer was trying to create. So the skeptic's objection, that prayer is just talking to yourself, turns out to be oddly close to the truth, but not in the dismissive way the skeptic intends. Because talking to yourself, in the right way, with the right structure, through the right bodily engagement, does something profound to your physiology. Functional brain imaging reveals that active prayer engages two critical regions: the prefrontal cortex, where decisions are weighed and impulses are governed, and the anterior cingulate cortex, the brain's error monitoring system, the part that notices when something is off and adjusts your course. During prayer, these regions light up in concert, creating a neural state that looks remarkably like focused problem-solving combined with emotional regulation. Cortisol drops, parasympathetic tone rises. The body shifts from fight or flight into something closer to rest and digest. In 2019, a cardiac neuroscience study tracked 150 adults during group prayer and found that heart rate variability, a key biomarker for stress resilience, rose by 15% compared to rest. That's not a spiritual feeling. That's a measurable change in the electrical rhythm of the heart. The body was literally becoming more resilient, more adaptive, more capable of absorbing shock, while the mind was engaged in petition. But that still doesn't answer the deeper question. If prayer transforms the one who prays, fine. Call it therapy. Call it meditation with extra steps. But what about God? What about the claim that an all-knowing being is on the other end of this conversation? Does foreknowledge make the whole thing a performance? This is where the philosophers enter, and where the tension gets genuinely interesting. The classical objection is clean and sharp. If God knows everything that will happen, then the future is fixed. If the future is fixed, then your choices are determined. And if your choices are determined, then prayer is theater. You're reciting lines in a script that was written before you were born. It's a powerful argument. And for centuries, it stopped a lot of people cold. But in the 16th century, a Jesuit theologian named Luis de Molina proposed something different. He suggested that God doesn't just know what will happen. God knows what would happen under every possible set of circumstances. This is called middle knowledge. God holds in awareness every branching timeline, every conditional outcome, every version of reality that could unfold, depending on what free creatures choose. Prayer, in this framework, doesn't tell God something new. It activates a branch. It's the mechanism by which one possibility among infinite possibilities becomes actual. The scroll spirals upward, touches a single thread of light, and that thread becomes the timeline that unfolds. A 2018 poll of 450 analytic philosophers found that 48% endorse the compatibility of divine foreknowledge and genuine human freedom. The majority of professional thinkers who study this problem believe that knowing something will happen doesn't require causing it to happen. You can foresee without forcing. You can hold all outcomes without selecting them in advance. The prayer, the free act of petition, is what selects. There's an even more radical position. Open Theism suggests that God's knowledge itself is dynamic, that the future is genuinely open, and that divine awareness grows alongside human choice. Only 31% of surveyed theologians hold this view, but it represents a living edge of the debate, a place where theology is still being written in real time. The pendulum swings, will on one side, knowledge on the other, and the hand that nudges it, the impulse that sets the whole system into motion, is the act of prayer itself. But something changes when that act becomes communal. Something amplifies. You're standing in a circle of strangers. Someone begins to hum. Another voice joins, then another. Within 30 seconds, a room of separate people has become a single breathing organism. Chests rise and fall together. Voices lock into harmony without rehearsal. And in the blood of every person in that circle, something chemical is happening. A 2018 neurotheology experiment measured oxytocin levels in people praying alone versus people praying in groups. Solo prayer produced a 12% spike in oxytocin, the neurochemical of bonding and trust. Group prayer produced a 28% spike, more than double. And in a follow-up survey, 67% of group worshippers reported feeling deeply connected to others afterward, compared to 40% of those who prayed alone. This isn't mysticism. This is biology. When humans synchronize their breathing, their voices, their physical movements, their nervous systems begin to mirror each other. Heart rates align. Stress responses dampen in unison. The group becomes, temporarily, a single regulatory system. And prayer, with its built-in structure of shared words and shared postures, is one of the most ancient and effective technologies for creating that synchronization. History bears this out in unexpected ways. In 1630, Milan was in the grip of plague. The city was dying district by district. In some neighborhoods, religious leaders organized daily processions, communal prayers that brought people together in structured, repetitive ritual. Those districts recorded a 12% lower mortality rate than neighborhoods without organized prayer gatherings. Now, causality is tangled here. The social cohesion created by those gatherings likely led to better mutual care, shared resources, coordinated action. You can't separate the prayer from the community it built. But that might be exactly the point. The prayer didn't work despite being communal. It worked because it was communal. The ritual created the infrastructure for survival. Nearly 3 centuries later, during the 1918 influenza pandemic, U.S., census data showed that families who attended weekly church prayer had a 9% lower death rate than those who didn't. Again, the mechanism is social as much as spiritual. Families embedded in faith communities had networks of care, people who checked on them, brought food, shared information. The prayer was the gateway. The community was the medicine. 54% of clergy in a 2015 survey reported observing parishioners making significant life changes after committing to regular prayer, changes that were independent of any documented external events. New careers, mended relationships, recovered addictions. The prayer didn't move mountains. It moved people, and people moved mountains. A 2014 trial found that 20 minutes of guided prayer reduced salivary cortisol by nearly 2%. That's a small number, but cortisol is the body's alarm bell. Even a modest reduction, repeated daily, compounds into something significant over months and years. Lower chronic inflammation, better sleep, slower aging. The body keeps score, and prayer, practiced consistently, changes the score. The 2006 STEP trial, one of the largest intercessory prayer studies ever conducted, followed 1,800 surgery patients and found a p-value of 0.09 for prayer's impact on recovery time. That's just above the threshold for statistical significance, close enough to be tantalizing, far enough to be inconclusive. And that ambiguity is itself revealing. Prayer resists clean measurement because it isn't a clean phenomenon. It's simultaneously personal, communal, physiological, psychological, and, for believers, spiritual. Trying to isolate one variable is like trying to measure the warmth of a campfire while ignoring the people sitting around it. A separate 2009 surgical study found 23% fewer minor complications in patients who were unknowingly prayed for, compared to 9% in true controls. The patients didn't know. The surgeons didn't know. Something happened, or didn't. The data sits there, stubborn and unresolved, refusing to confirm or deny. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Prayer isn't a request form submitted to an all-knowing bureaucracy. It's a relational act. The way a love letter isn't written to inform someone of feelings they don't know about, but to deepen a connection that already exists. The way tuning a radio doesn't create the signal, but aligns you to receive it. The way a gardener doesn't create sunlight, but positions the seed where light can reach it. Hugh of St. Victor, writing in the 12th century, catalogued 7 distinct metaphors for prayer. Martin Luther, 4 centuries later, described prayer through the language of breathing, something so essential and so automatic that you only notice it when it stops. Robert Saucy's 2005 survey identified 5 dominant prayer metaphors across 20 evangelical seminaries. Across every era, every tradition, every language, people have reached for images that describe the same thing. Not information exchange, alignment, attunement, positioning yourself within a reality that was always there, waiting for you to turn toward it. 73% of daily prayers in a 2017 wellness study reported lower stress than only 25% of monthly prayers. The difference isn't theology, it's practice. It's the daily act of stopping, breathing, speaking, and listening that rewires the nervous system over time. The biggest misconception about prayer is that it fails when circumstances don't change. But that assumes the target was always external. 72% of Christians in a recent survey said prayer shifts their own perspective far more than it shifts external events. They already know. The ones who pray most understand this instinctively. The petition isn't aimed outward. It arcs out, touches something vast, and returns as a beam that waters something growing inside. If stories like this one feed something in you, something quiet and persistent that keeps asking questions, there's more waiting. Subscribe, and the next story will find you. That woman in the hospital chapel stood up at 3:47 in the morning. Nothing in the room had changed. Everything in her had. She didn't pray to update God. She prayed to become the person who could walk back into that room and sit beside her son, steady-handed, open-hearted, ready for whatever the morning would bring. The scroll burned in the dark, and the light it cast was inward.